May 2nd, 1945. A dense tract of the Bavarian forest, somewhere south of Passau. The air, thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, carries a sound it was never meant to hold, the grinding complaint of tank treads chewing through mud. For Nachrichten Helfer and Helga Schmidt, the sound is a death rattle. Not for her, perhaps, but for the world she knew. Her gray-green wool uniform, once a symbol of duty and order, is now just a tattered rag, stained with mud and the faint coppery smell of old fear. For 3 days, her small communications detachment, what was left of it, had been retreating, a chaotic scramble away from the thunder of American artillery. The retreat had no direction, no grand strategy. It was simply movement away from noise, away from the end. Now, the movement had stopped. She lies flat against a carpet of damp pine needles, the rough bark of a fir tree pressing into her cheek. Her stomach is a hollow, aching cavern. The last of the hard bread had been consumed yesterday, washed down with metallic-tasting water from a canteen she shared with 3 others. Beside her, a young corporal named Klaus, his face a boyish canvas of dirt and premature exhaustion, fiddles with the bolt of his Carabiner 98K. The click-clack of the metal is a nervous, rhythmic punctuation to the forest's silence. It is a false silence, the kind that comes just before the storm breaks. You can feel the pressure of it in your ears, a physical weight. The birds have long since fled. The only thing that moves is the wind, whispering through the high branches with a sound like a final, mournful sigh. They are not soldiers anymore. They are ghosts, haunting the ragged edge of a fallen empire. Then the sound changes. The low, distant rumble of the tanks becomes a specific, localized threat, a deep, guttural growl that vibrates up through the soil and into Helga's bones. A branch snaps, loud as a pistol shot, somewhere to their left. Klaus freezes, his hand clamped around the rifle's bolt. Lieutenant Fassbender, their commanding officer, a man whose crisp uniform and confident posture had seemed to melt away over the last 72 hours, crawls over to them, his eyes wide. He mouths a single word, Americana. It is not a warning, it is a eulogy. Suddenly, the forest erupts. It isn't the cacophony of a pitched battle, but something more surgical, more terrifyingly efficient. The distinct heavy thud of an M2 Browning machine gun rips through the trees, its 50 caliber rounds tearing through wood and flesh with indifferent power. Men shout, not in defiance, but in shock and pain. Helga doesn't move. She presses herself deeper into the earth, wishing she could be swallowed by it. This is not the heroic last stand from the newsreels. This is a pest extermination. Through the screen of ferns, she sees it. A monster of olive drab steel, an M4 Sherman tank, its long 76mm cannon slowly traversing, sniffing the air for targets. Figures move behind it, shadows in helmets, carrying rifles that look short and stubby from this distance. M1 Garans, the Americans. They move with a relaxed, almost casual purpose that speaks of absolute dominance. A voice, amplified by a bullhorn, cuts through the air. The words are English, a language Helga understands from her schooling, but which now sounds alien, impossibly foreign. Throw down your weapons. Come out with your hands on your head. The war is over for you. Lieutenant Fassbender rises slowly, his hands held high. A single tear cuts a clean path through the grime on his cheek. One by one, the others follow, emerging from the trees like specters called forth from their graves. Helga's limbs feel like lead. She presses herself up, her knees trembling. The air is cold, but sweat slicks her skin. As she steps into the clearing, her eyes meet those of a young American soldier. He can't be more than 20. His face is clean-shaven, his eyes a weary blue. He doesn't look at her with hatred, with triumph. He just looks tired, so incredibly tired. He gestures with the barrel of his rifle. The movement is not aggressive, just an instruction. Get in line. She joins the column of gray uniforms, her past erased, her future a terrifying blank. The capture was not a moment of violence. It was a moment of quiet, absolute finality. The world had ended not with a bang, but with a quiet order in a language she barely understood.
The days that follow bleed into one another, a monotonous smear of gray skies and gray uniforms. The Americans herd them from the forest, and they become a tributary to a larger river of humanity, a river of the defeated. The column stretches for kilometers, a shuffling, silent procession of Wehrmacht soldiers, Volkssturm old men, and a handful of female auxiliaries like Helga. They are a river of gray ghosts, flowing slowly but inexorably towards some unknown destination. Their guards, GIs from the U.S. 11th Armored Division, ride alongside them in jeeps and M3 half-tracks, their faces impassive, their rifles held loosely but ready. There is no conversation, no camaraderie among the prisoners. Each is locked in their own private world of hunger, fatigue, and shame. The only sound is the rhythmic scuff of thousands of boots on gravel roads and the occasional dry cough that rattles through the ranks. They march through the ruins of their own country. The skeletal remains of towns and villages pass by like monuments in a vast graveyard. Walls sheared away reveal the intimate details of a home, a tilted painting, a child's crib, wallpaper with faded flowers. The German civilians who watch them pass do so with hollow eyes. There is no sympathy, no anger, just a shared, silent acknowledgement of the abyss. They too are prisoners, trapped in the wreckage of the Reich. Helga learns to walk without thinking, to place one foot in front of the other as an automatic biological function. Her thoughts shrink, focusing only on the immediate. The worn heels of the man in front of her, a loose stone in the road, the gnawing ache in her belly that has become her constant companion. The world is reduced to these small, physical realities. At night, they are herded into open fields, surrounded by temporary barricades of concertina wire. There are no tents, no blankets. They simply collapse where they stand, huddling together for warmth as the damp spring chill seeps up from the ground. Helga tries to find a spot near a hedge or a slight depression in the earth, anything to break the wind. Sleep is not rest. It is a shallow, fitful state, punctuated by the grunts and murmurs of the men around her, the distant rumble of Allied supply trucks on the Autobahn, and the cold that sinks deep into her joints. It is here, lying on the hard, unforgiving earth, that a new pain begins to assert itself, a low, persistent throb in her lower back. At first, it is a minor annoyance, but night after night of sleeping on the bare ground, with no support, no cushion, no way to find a comfortable position, the ache deepens. It becomes a grinding, structural pain, a reminder with every breath that her body is slowly breaking down. During these long nights, she watches the guards. Most are anonymous figures in the dark, silhouettes against the moon. But one she begins to recognize. It's the young private with the tired blue eyes from the day of her capture. She learns his name is Riley, overhearing another GI call to him. Private First Class John Riley. He walks his post with a different gait than the others. Less rigid, less swaggering. He doesn't spit or curse. Sometimes he just stops and stares out at the mass of sleeping prisoners, his M1 Garand held at port arms, his face a mask of something she can't quite decipher. It isn't pity. It's more like a profound, weary confusion, as if he's trying to reconcile the enemies he was trained to kill with the exhausted, broken human beings sleeping in the mud before him. One evening, she sees him approach an old man, a Volkssturm conscript who can't stop coughing. Riley says nothing. He just reaches into his field jacket, pulls out a Hershey's chocolate bar, and presses it into the old man's hand, before continuing his patrol as if nothing happened. Helga watches from the darkness, a strange, forgotten feeling stirring within her. It is not hope. It is something far smaller, more fragile. It is curiosity. After what feels like an eternity, the river of ghosts reaches its destination. They crest a small hill, and laid out before them is a vast, terrifying sight. A city of mud and barbed wire, stretching as far as the eye can see. It's one of the Rhine-Wiesenlager, the massive, temporary prisoner of war enclosures built by the Allies along the Rhine. Thousands upon thousands of men are packed into huge open-air pens. There are no buildings, no barracks, no shelter. Just the earth, the wire, and the sky. A cold dread, sharper and more potent than the hunger, settles in Helga's stomach. This is not a camp. This is a place to be stored, a place to be forgotten. As the guards shove them through the gates and into a pen already crowded with filthy, listless men, the wire closes behind them with a final metallic groan. The outside world is gone. There is only the mud.
The enclosure is a universe unto itself, a self-contained world governed by a few brutal, simple laws. The first law is mud. It is everywhere, a thick, sucking mire churned by the boots of 10,000 men and the ceaseless spring rain. It cakes your clothes, works its way into your food, and provides a cold, wet bed at night. The second law is hunger. Rations are a grim joke. Once a day, a watery soup,
sometimes with a few flecks of unidentifiable vegetable matter, is ladled into whatever container a prisoner can find: a helmet, a dented canteen, or cupped dirty hands. It is accompanied by a single rock-hard biscuit. The calories are just enough to keep you alive, but not enough to fend off the slow, creeping erosion of malnutrition. Your body begins to consume itself. Muscles atrophy. Skin stretches taut over bone. The third law is waiting. You wait for the rain to stop. You wait for the food distribution. You wait for news. You wait for the end of a war that is already over. The waiting is a form of torture, a slow hollowing out of the soul. Helga carves out a small existence in this purgatory. She is one of only a few dozen women in a pen of thousands of men. At first, she is an object of curiosity, but the overwhelming misery soon erases gender, rank, and identity. They are all just prisoners, scarecrows of skin and bone. She finds a small group of other women, and they form a silent, protective alliance, sharing what little they have and sleeping back to back for warmth. Her body continues its descent. The pain in her back is no longer a dull ache. It is a sharp, constant agony. The vertebrae feel like they are grinding against each other. Every movement is a carefully calculated negotiation with pain. When she lies down at night on the cold, damp ground, her muscles seize up, locking her spine into a stiff, unforgiving curve. Getting up in the morning is a slow, excruciating process of forcing her rigid limbs to bend. She is 24 years old, but her body feels ancient, brittle as dry leaves. She sees Private Riley again. His unit is part of the rotating guard detail for their section of the camp. He still has the same tired, distant look in his eyes. He never shouts, never uses his rifle butt to shove a prisoner who is moving too slowly. He just watches. His presence is a strange, quiet counterpoint to the casual brutality of the other guards. He seems to see them, not as a faceless enemy, the kraut of propaganda posters, but as individual human beings caught in the gears of a terrible machine. Helga learns his patrol schedule. When he is on the watchtower, the oppressive atmosphere of the camp seems to lift, just a fraction. It is an irrational feeling, but a powerful one. He is a reminder that a world of simple decency still exists somewhere beyond the wire. One afternoon, the sky opens up in a violent, drenching downpour. The camp becomes a churning sea of mud. There is no escape. Helga huddles with her small group, a thin, threadbare blanket held over their heads, doing little to stop the deluge. The cold is a physical blow, stealing what little warmth her body has left. She begins to shiver, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that starts in her bones and shakes her entire frame. The world begins to tilt and blur. The faces of the women around her swim in and out of focus. Her back screams in protest, a hot poker of pain driving up her spine. The effort of simply staying upright becomes too much. Her legs give way, and she slumps forward, her face pressing into the cold, liquid mud. Vaguely, she hears someone calling her name. She feels hands trying to lift her, but she has no strength left to help them. The world narrows to a pinprick of light, and then fades into a welcome, painless darkness. When she wakes, the world is canvas. She is inside a tent, lying on a crude cot made of wood and stretched burlap. It is an infirmary tent, a place where the sickest prisoners are brought, though it offers little more than a roof against the rain. The air smells of disinfectant and unwashed bodies. A German doctor, himself a prisoner, checks her forehead and murmurs something about fever and exhaustion. For 2 days, she drifts in and out of a delirious state, her body racked with fever. But the cot, as hard and unforgiving as it is a luxury beyond imagination. It is not the ground. It allows the tortured muscles in her back to unclench just slightly. On the 3rd day, the fever breaks. She is weak, her limbs heavy as stone, but her mind is clear. She lies on her side, staring at the canvas wall, listening to the muffled sounds of the camp. That evening, as dusk settles, a shadow falls over the entrance to the tent. A pair of American combat boots steps inside. It is Private Riley. He is not supposed to be in here. His patrol is outside. He looks around the tent, at the rows of sick and dying men, his young face etched with a pain that seems too deep for his years. And then his eyes find hers. He stands there for a long moment, framed in the tent's opening, a silhouette against the fading twilight. The sounds of the camp, a distant shout, the clatter of a mess cape, the endless soft squelch of boots in mud, seemed to recede. Inside the infirmary tent, there is only the shallow breathing of the sick and the heavy silence between the German prisoner and the American guard. Helga watches him, her heart thumping a slow, heavy rhythm against her ribs. Fear is the default response, the instinct honed by months of captivity. A guard's attention is never a good thing. It means you have been noticed. It means you are a target. She braces herself for an order, a shove, a casual act of cruelty. She tries to make herself smaller, to disappear into the rough burlap of the cot. But Riley doesn't move toward her with aggression. His steps are slow, deliberate, almost hesitant. He navigates the narrow space between the cots, his gaze fixed on her. She can see his face clearly now in the gloomy interior. It is the face of a boy from a farm in Ohio or a town in Pennsylvania, a face that should be worrying about harvests or baseball games, not presiding over a landscape of human ruin. He stops beside her cot. He doesn't speak. The silence stretches, becoming a tangible thing, thick with unspoken questions. What does he want? Why her? Is this some new, incomprehensible form of torment? Her body is coiled tight, a spring of pure tension. The muscles in her back, which had found a small measure of relief on the cot, now bunch and knot together, preparing for a blow that doesn't come. He crouches down, his knees popping softly in the quiet. His M1 Garand is slung over his shoulder, the dark wood of its stock inches from her face. He reaches into the large canvas musette bag slung at his hip, the kind GIs use to carry their personal gear. He fumbles inside for a moment, and when his hand emerges, he is holding a small, lumpy bundle of olive drab canvas. It is a field pillow, a standard issue item, filled with rough stuffing, something a soldier would use to get a few hours of precious sleep in a foxhole or the back of a truck. It is a piece of his world, a small personal comfort brought into this place where comfort has been systematically erased. He holds it out to her. The gesture is simple, direct. There is no ceremony to it. His weary blue eyes meet hers, and in them she sees no malice, no pity, just a plain, unadorned offering. For a moment, her mind refuses to process what is happening. It is a logical impossibility. The universe of the camp does not contain such events. It operates on a different set of physical laws, where kindness is an anomaly, a tear in the fabric of reality. Her hands remain at her sides. She can't move them. They feel disconnected from her brain, two useless appendages of flesh and bone. Seeing her hesitation, Riley leans forward slightly, his movements slow and gentle, as if approaching a frightened animal. He takes her left hand, which is resting limply on the cot, and gently, carefully places the small canvas-wrapped pillow into her palm. The moment it touches her skin, a shockwave travels up her arm. It is not the softness she expects. It is the weight, the impossible weight of a small kindness. It feels heavier than a block of concrete, an object from a different dimension with its own gravitational pull. And her body, conditioned by months of abuse and deprivation, reacts not with gratitude, but with pure animal terror. A violent, involuntary spasm seizes her. The muscles in her neck and shoulders lock solid. The fragile truce her spine had made with the cot is shattered. The vertebrae clamp down, and a bolt of white-hot agony shoots from the base of her skull down to her hips. Her back, her entire torso, freezes into a rigid, unyielding arch. Her eyes are wide, staring at the young American soldier, but she doesn't see him. She sees only a threat. Her body has made a decision her mind cannot comprehend. It has chosen pain over comfort, because pain is familiar. Pain is survival. A gasp escapes her lips, a choked, strangled sound. She tries to relax, to tell her muscles that this is not a threat, but they will not obey. My back, she thinks with a surge of panic. My back wouldn't move.
The lockdown is absolute. It is a rebellion of sinew and nerve against an illogical act of mercy. Every muscle fiber along her spine, trained for months to anticipate the hardness of the ground, the jab of a rifle butt, the need to curl into a defensive ball, now contracts in a violent, synchronized spasm. The simple, yielding softness of the pillow is an existential threat. Her body's memory is more powerful than her conscious thought. It remembers that softness comes before a fall, that a moment of relaxation is an invitation for attack. To her nervous system, this small gift is not comfort. It is a profound and dangerous vulnerability. The pain is excruciating, a solid bar of iron rammed along her spine. It steals her breath, making her vision swim with black spots. She is trapped inside a body that has turned on itself,
a prisoner of her own conditioned reflexes. Private Riley sees it happen. He sees the widening of her eyes, the sudden, rigid arch of her back, the sharp intake of breath that is more pain than air. Confusion flickers across his face, then a dawning, horrified understanding. He didn't mean to cause this. He had seen a sick woman lying on a hard surface and performed a simple human act. He had no way of knowing that in this inverted world, the grammar of kindness had been forgotten. An offering could be interpreted only as a prelude to violence. He instantly pulls his hand back as if burned. He wants to speak, to say something, to explain, but he has no German, and he senses that words would only make it worse. He has trespassed, stumbled into a psychological minefield he cannot navigate. Doing the only thing he can think of, he slowly rises to his feet, takes a step back, and then another. He gives her space, retreating from the cot and backing out of the tent, melting back into the dusk, leaving the small, terrifying pillow lying in her frozen hand. Helga lies there, rigid and trembling, her knuckles white where she clutches the canvas. The world is nothing but the searing pain in her back and the alien object in her palm. Minutes pass. An hour. The infirmary tent grows dark around her. Slowly, glacially, the terror begins to subside. The immediate threat, the guard, is gone. Her mind begins a desperate battle with her body, sending frantic, pleading messages to the clenched muscles. Let go. It is safe. Let go. The first release is not a gentle unfurling, but a sharp, cracking sensation, like ice breaking up in a frozen river. A muscle in her shoulder gives way with a jolt of fresh pain, followed by another in her lower back. Each release is a small, agonizing surrender. Tears begin to well in her eyes. They are not tears of gratitude or sadness. They are tears of pure physical and emotional overload. The pain of the spasm is replaced by the deep, throbbing ache on muscles that have been pushed beyond their limits. She brings the pillow closer, cautiously, as if it were a live thing that might bite. She touches the rough canvas to her cheek. It smells faintly of sweat, soap, and the outdoors, the smell of a living, breathing person from a world that still made sense. A memory, sharp and vivid, cuts through the fog of her misery. Her own bed, in her family's small apartment in Munich. The weight of a heavy feather eiderdown, the clean scent of lavender from the linens, the feeling of sinking into a mattress and letting every muscle in her body go limp. The contrast between that memory and her current reality is a physical blow, more painful than any beating. That life, that person, was gone forever. With a surge of effort that cost her everything, she manages to shift her weight, to turn onto her side. She takes the small, lumpy pillow and hesitantly, carefully tucks it under her head. Her neck, for the first time in months, is supported. It is not perfect. It is not a feather pillow from home, but it is not the hard, unyielding earth. It is something. And in that small, fragile something, a crack appears in the frozen wall of her despair. The tears now flow freely, silently tracing paths through the grime on her cheeks. They are the first tears she has shed since the day of her capture. The simple pillow has not healed her broken body, but it has done something far more profound. It has reminded her that she has a body to be broken. It has forced her to feel again. In the ruins of Germany, in a muddy cage of barbed wire, a young American soldier had handed her a pillow, and in doing so, he had handed her back a piece of her own humanity. The road back would be long and paved with pain, but in the darkness of the infirmary tent, for the first time in a very long time, it felt as if that road might actually have a beginning.